Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Herman Mashaba, the President of Action South Africa. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Herman Mashaba, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. Obviously been following you for some time, for many years, many years. And I was surprised the other day to receive the message that you're still in broadcasting. I thought you probably decided to go for farming or do something else. And I was surprised to learn that you're still in broadcasting. So here am I talking to you, and let's see how the engagement goes.
Thanks, Herman. Media is the only thing I know how to do, so here I am.
Thank you. I can tell you my life has been taking many turns. You can imagine. I mean, the job I'm doing today, the job that I hate. Yeah.
You know,
I always tell people I really hate this job with a passion, because I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would one day become a politician or a public servant. Here am I, a capitalist like myself, someone who likes going out to making money. That's probably what I was born to do, to make money. I started gambling at an early stage of my life. It was not because of gambling. You know, in the township, we play this game of dice. That's what actually helped me to go through school, because brought up in a child-hated household with no parents around, and went to university in 1979, 1980, second year of my studies.
Interesting, Herman, that you say you're doing a job that you hate. Why are you doing it?
Well, Trevor, tell me, if Herman Mashaba doesn't do something about the current trajectory that South Africa is on, this country is gonna go. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. I think we have to democratically work towards the unseating of the ANC, because we grew up thinking that the ANC is a liberation movement. It's a party that's going to give us as Black South Africans the dignity. Unfortunately, they've given us hell. As far as I'm concerned, I really feel that they're a criminal enterprise masquerading as a political party. And I believe, looking at our constitutional framework before the ANC actually interferes with it, we've got to mobilize South Africans to remove them and put in an accountable government. And then, if it's not Herman Mashaba, then who? So I wasn't really born to really be a spectator in life. My grandfather taught me never to be a spectator, never to live a life without a purpose. So, I feel if not Herman Mashaba, then who?
That's interesting, Herman. Is it not too late to stop
Not
the ANC?
It's almost.
You call them what? A criminal what?
It's a criminal enterprise masquerading as a political party.
Is it not too late to stop them?
No, for being a criminal enterprise that you can't change. The only thing that we can change is to remove them from office come 2024. It's going to be our last chance. If South Africa, honestly and truly, we fail to remove the ANC from government, then economically, there's just no way that the economy of South Africa will sustain another 5 years of ANC government. Then I'm telling you, what happened to beautiful Zimbabwe will be like a Sunday school picnic. So we've got a chance, but that window is faster closing. So it is very important to work hard to get young Black South Africans to wake up to their reality, to really understand that you cannot divorce your lives from politics, because human beings by nature, we are political animals. So you decide to stay away from voting and thinking that someone else will do it for you. Then that's when you end up with a criminal enterprise and criminals governing you and on dictators. So it's really up to us. We've got a short window open. And so that's why we're preparing for 2024.
Is it possible, Herman, that South Africa could become another Zimbabwe? Is it possible?
Very highly possible. Very, very highly possible. More especially if Black South Africans, they stay away from voting, because luckily Black South Africans have had enough of ANC. So the numbers are there. The ANC is losing power, the voter support at a very fast rate. Their survival is dependent on Black people staying away from voting. So that's why it's important. Privileged South Africans like myself, because I really regard myself to be a privileged South African, to use our influence to really get them to wake up. Because I remember Trevor already back during Thabo Mbeki's era, already in the late 90s, early 2000s. I used to go back home as a businessman. During dinner, I said to my family, I said, I'm really concerned with this ANC. I have a sense, and I'm not a prophet, I have a sense that they want to keep Black people poor and uneducated. And fortunately enough, everybody agrees. I mean, look at the educational outcomes of South Africa. It's the worst in the world. Look at unemployment in this country. It's the highest sustainable in the world. So if you look at any index, South Africa, I've really battled to really find anything positive I can really find about what the ANC government has done.
You can't find anything positive the ANC has done?
What? Honestly, Jenny, please assist me. Maybe I'm biased, or maybe
Black affirmative action?
No. That's been the biggest disaster of the ANC government, because it has made Black people poorer. It has gotten our economy to really have money flowing out of the country, the skills.
But it has made some Black South Africans rich.
Oligarchs. Absolutely, yes. It produced a few oligarchs, but the inequality and the state of Black South Africans today, they are poorer than they were under apartheid. I mean, I was born and raised in a village in 1959, in Hammanskraal, where we had no water, no electricity. I can tell you, if I look at that kind of lifestyle, losing a father at the age of 2, I lived many years in a tin house, what people live in the squatter camps, but in a decent village where we had the pride. And I look at today in the city of Johannesburg, you look at the deplorable living conditions of the people. Honestly, much worse than the life I led in 1959 when I was born, during the dark days of this country's history, which is really very sad.
How did we get here, Herman? How did South Africa get here? This is how many years after independence?
29 years.
How did we get here?
Look, we grew up, obviously, unbeknown to us, that there's people who left the country, Nelson Mandela playing a great role in assisting to set up for ANC to start the liberation struggle. Unfortunately, they were arrested quite early stage of their initiative. And unfortunately, their organization, they were in exile, was taken over by criminal elements, because the Trevor asked a lot of Black South Africans, most of them who have been in exile, some of them actually left this country not because of political reasons. They were running away from criminal activity, end up in the camps of liberation organization, and they took over those organizations. They come back here and continued with their criminal activity, becoming ministers. And today they are the ones who are governing us. If you look at the ANC, be in parliament, or all the structures of the ANC, infiltrated by criminal enterprises and working with international criminal syndicates.
Wow. Wow. How are you going to stop them? I mean, the last election, they were at what, 50?
Well, the last national elections, they were at 57.
How are you going to
But if you look at the last local government elections in 2021, they're now at just over 46%, and dropping very fast. They'll be lucky if they can really be in the early 30s.
You're that confident? You're that confident?
Very confident. they'll be lucky. I think they will need their gods because they don't believe in God. So they will need their gods to get anywhere close to 30%. Because I can tell you, Black South Africans have seen through this. Because you are not going to tell someone who's not worked for the last 10, 15, 20 years that their lives have improved. I mean, you're not going to lie to a person for 29 years. You can lie in the beginning. You tell them, giving them your liberation credentials. But at the end of the day, people are not going to leave they're not going to leave your credentials. People have got their own lived experience. And if you look at the lived experience of poor people in this country, it's deplorable.
What are the people? I see you quite active on the ground. You're meeting people from all across the country. What are they saying to you directly as you meet them? What is it that is hurting them the most?
Well, unemployment, the breakdown of the rule of law. I mean, for people not to work, failure of education. I mean, if you look at in the townships and the villages, are you aware, Trevor? 80% of public schools in this country are dysfunctional. And you've got the two ministers, Angie Motshekga and Bladen Nzimande. Tell me, can you send your child to a school governed by Angie Motshekga, or can you go to a university with Bladen Nzimande as the rector? Can you send your child to and these are people who are now running the very important institution to prepare the nation to really be able to really compete with the world. They are rewarded. They've been in these portfolios for many years. Look at the Department of Trade and Industry in this country. Right now, we've got Ibrahim Patel. Before him, we've always had communist ministers of trade and industry. In a civilized nation today, when we have empirical evidence of the failure of communism and socialism, but you've got Minister of Trade and Industry, someone who hates business. You put him as a Minister of Trade and Industry. Tell me, what are you looking for? You take someone as Minister of Police, someone with really very questionable history that everybody knows that the Minister of Police is supposed to actually be serving in jail and is the Minister of the Police. That's why the criminal justice system has collapsed. So we're facing major challenges in South Africa. Are they insurmountable? I believe very strongly that come 2024, we will sort this out. Because failure to do this, then unfortunately, South Africa will be declared a failed state.
There's always been a narrative, Herman, that says South Africa is exceptional. It's different from the rest of the continent. That the ANC is different from the other liberation movements. But when I'm listening to you right now, I get the sense that the ANC is just another failed liberation movement.
In fact, I'm a student of history. I like reading, and I'll read about human beings. I watched a lot of stuff on television and so forth. I cannot really find ANC to be any different to most of the African leaders, or especially the ones coming from the liberation era. And I think what's disappointing for us here in South Africa is because South Africa being the last country to really get their independence, we thought they've actually learned, they've lived in these countries, they've obviously had a witness of really seeing what corruption, what criminality can do. And I can tell you, ANC came into this country. They've actually perfected. They've really perfected what they've experienced. It looks like while they were in exile, they used to be envious of these blue lights and these leaders living like kings when their subjects, their citizens were living in abject poverty. Because that's what the ANC is committed to see black people living in abject poverty.
I thought that, correct me if I'm wrong, that somebody like President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is an entrepreneur, who wasn't out in the struggle, would be different. Is he not different?
When was Cyril Ramaphosa an entrepreneur? Well, I mean, I was born in...
He was part of, he benefited from the BEE.
Do we call that entrepreneurship?
It's not entrepreneurship.
And unless we've got to get the Oxford Dictionary to start really giving a new interpretation of entrepreneurship. That's why in South Africa we developed our own called tenderpreneurs. Yeah, yes, probably is a tenderpreneur, which we must actually ask the Oxford Dictionary to really put the tenderpreneur there, and obviously Cyril Ramaphosa will qualify in that space to be a tenderpreneur. Not, I think it's an insult to South Africans, particularly as Black people, when the world actually would regard someone like Cyril Ramaphosa as a businessman. What business? Selling ancolas and being trading in US dollars. The US, which his party does not like, they prefer the Russians instead of the Western world, but they like the Western world money out there. When you're sitting in Cyril Ramaphosa's the home, you're not sure whether you're sitting on top of money, US dollars, or you're sitting on top of a proper chair, you know. And these are the kind of leaders we have today, who are multi-billionaires. And you ask yourself, but what really went wrong? Honestly, Trevor, it's very difficult to really understand these people. How much money do they want? People like myself, declared capitalists, even had to write a book, call it the Capitalist Crusader, just to really send a strong message to Black youth that there's absolutely nothing wrong for being a legal businessman. Go out, make money, develop our country, go and make billions, but make them legal. Then you get the leaders like Cyril Ramaphosa come and disrupt the whole system. They go out and preach socialism and associate internationally with the wrong regimes. And we forget that we need the economy to flourish. And for the economy to flourish, you need the rule of law, you need democracy, you need consequence management, which we unfortunately don't really have at the moment in South Africa.
Herman, listening to you, you are independent-minded, you're courageous, you're bold. I think I could actually, you don't have any sacred cows. I could call you a maverick in a way. And it's been interesting, some decisions that you've taken and the places where you've been outspoken. And the way you started Black Life, sort of Black Like Me, we're going to talk about that. The way you started, you were part of the Free Market Foundation, very at a time when it wasn't fashionable to do so. The way you challenged Section 23 of the South African...
Section 32 of the Labor Relations
Act. Your views on foreigners in South Africa and the way that you've started Action South Africa. Talk to me, where was that molded? Where was that shaped? Is it up you are bringing, where does it come from? You're being independent, fearless. You talk to me about that.
I guess my grandfather played a key role, which I came to appreciate later in my life. Born, Trevor, on the 26th of August, 1959, a year after HFR took over. So I was born in really very trying circumstances, you know. I don't know, for some reason, my grandfather happened to have been home. He was working for the municipality of Ga-Rankuwa as a security guard. Why he happened to have been home on the 26th of August, 1959, I don't know, because upon my arrival that morning, I believe he went from house to house, informing the community, and he called me high man, telling everyone that his son has brought some miracle, someone who's going to change the world. And he called me high man, which is not my official name. Was not my official name at the time. But I grew up being called Herman because that's what my grandfather had said to everyone. And obviously he used to come home every month, and then we'll spend the entire Christmas. That's when you will obviously get a full month at home. But I meant so much to this old man because unfortunately, as I've indicated, I lost my father at the age of 2. So my grandfather, every time when he was home, would always expect me to be with him from growing up. You know, he lived for me. I meant so much in his life. And he instilled in me a sense of self-worth, self-independence, self-belief. He ensured that I should really be independent in my thinking. I must be successful. I must take education seriously. I've got to do something. I must live a purposeful life. It says, so please never take things for granted. He always used to use himself as an example that I must never be like him. You know, I must never be like my father, who at the time when I opened my eyes, he wasn't around. So for me, calling someone dead in my life, it's foreign. I've never called someone dead in my life. So as I said, I brought up in a child-headed household. So I was really brought up by nature, by the community and life. That's why I started gambling at the early stages of my life. And I only changed this name from Hyman to Herman because at the time when I turned 13, 14, 15, this Hyman was too much for me. You know, it was overwhelming. No, you know, Hyman. And I used to feel that my grandfather's expectations of me were too much. And by that time in the 70s, Kaizer Motaung started Kaizer Chiefs. And he had a player from Namibia, Southwest Africa at the time, called Herman Pele Blaski, you know. And I used to be called Pele. I used to play football in the township. So I used to be called Pele. So because of Hyman. And then later on, when I became wiser, I then changed it to everyone Herman. To call me Herman. But if you go to the village where I was born, they still call me Hyman. But everywhere else.
I'm going to stop you here. We'll come back with Herman Mashaba. We're going to go to a controversial space. Herman has been accused for being xenophobic because of some of his views on foreigners. So don't go away. Join us on the other side.
ZANU PF and ANC are a curse to this continent.
Welcome back to our conversation with Herman Mashaba, the president of Action South Africa. Herman, you have been criticized for your views on foreigners in South Africa, immigrants in South Africa, linking them to crime, particularly when you were the mayor of Johannesburg. Is there a link between crime in South Africa and foreigners?
Well, I think crime in South Africa is a result of the ANC's criminality and inaction to really deal with the challenge. When you have a country like South Africa where you lose your sovereignty, there's just no way that you can ever progress. When you open your borders, to everyone. Unfortunately, you lose your sovereignty. To just give you an example, Trevor, when I was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, discovered that we were sitting with over 300,000 official housing backlog. But then here's the city, Johannesburg, just 30 years ago was a real world-class city. It was one of the most modern cities in the world. And now buildings have been hijacked and then put together a team to investigate what the problem was and discovered lots of hijacked, derelict, abandoned buildings, and we started raids. Trevor, you cannot believe that up to 80% of the people we found in these buildings in very deplorable conditions were undocumented foreign nationals and people coming from all over the world, literally. And when I questioned this on the 1st of December 2016, to say, no, we can't let the people live like this, whether they're foreigners or not. It is unacceptable. South Africa it's a sovereign country. We can't live with so many people without documentation. Obviously, I was sensitive to the fact that people were restricted, they were blocked from discussing this matter. And I decided, no, we cannot live like this, because at the end of the day, there's very same people that are being exploited are undocumented foreign nationals. You go into the city center of Johannesburg, you see the human trafficking that's happening there by international criminal syndicates. And I said, no, my silence, if I do keep quiet on this, God will punish me. I've got a...
Were you tempted to keep quiet?
No, I was not.
No, okay.
No. Fortunately enough, as I've indicated to you, my grandfather instilled in me not to really... If I keep quiet on a thing, I keep quiet. You must know I'm keeping quiet. But there are certain things which, for me, you reach a point where I'm saying, no, this is totally unacceptable. It's like going into politics, because I was sick and tired of having discussions with friends at dinner parties in boardrooms. And I said to myself, no, this is not life. Someone has got to really do something. And I decided I'm not going to run away from my country. Let me, while the constitution is still in place, let me really do something. So when I raised this matter, I was actually quite surprised the way people started attacking me, more especially in the media, and the beneficiaries of these criminal syndicates. They're using so-called human rights lawyers and NGOs who are paid by the criminality that's really happening. In the meantime, they are violating the rights of particularly women. You get into some of these properties where young women as young as 10, 12, 14 are attempting to prostitute. The only payment they get is drugs. They're made to sleep with 20, 30 men a day. They can't report this matters to anywhere because they're in the country illegally. They came here because they thought South Africa was better than where they came from. And we were expected to keep quiet about this. And I said, no, I think let me liberate South Africans. Let us discuss this particular matter. What I found actually quite disturbing and concerning, and made me to even be much more vocal about it, is because when I was then attacked about hating Africans, in the meantime, South Africa is not sitting with foreigners from Africa. I can tell you to Bangladesh, India, China, Pakistan. Actually, on the 22nd of October 2019, actually presented to parliamentary portfolio on Home Affairs. I gave them stats because over the period when I was the mayor, when I started discovering what was happening in the city of Johannesburg, and managed to put in professional people to monitor this, JMPD, I requested them to really keep stats of undocumented illegal foreigners who are in South Africa. I presented that report to Parliament, and to my surprise, ANC and all the other parties in Parliament didn't want me to present a slide where I actually showed South Africa to be the World Cup of crime. Because you had criminals from the United States, from Australia, from Mexico, from everywhere else. I mean, I still have that report I can send you.
Please do, so that we share it with our viewers.
I will email you that presentation. Yeah. And they were refusing to me. And this the parliamentary portfolio on Home Affairs, Motsoaledi just took over at the time as Home Affairs Minister. And he was defending this and accusing me. But I put my foot down, and what I actually did in Parliament, throughout my presentation, I made that particular slide to be there all the time.
What was that slide showing?
Showing
More
no.
Chinese, Bangladeshis?
No. Obviously, I think because of the proximity of Zimbabweans and Mozambicans, you will naturally have more of undocumented people coming because of the proximity.
Right.
And so forth. So yes, you'll get a few Americans, a few British, lots of Pakistanis, Bangladeshis.
So you get attacked for hating Africans.
That is, and that made me even much more determined because it was because I think it's a strategy of criminal elements. When they do wrong, they want to pull you down, to get you to keep quiet, shut up. That's really what the criminal syndicates do. Trevor was born in an environment where, growing up, people will always be there to pull you down. Don't try that with Herman Mashaba. The harder you're going to try and pull you down, I can tell you, try and put me in the corner, I'm going to get out fighting. I'm going to come out fighting. So
am I safe here, Herman?
So fortunate enough, you've given me space, so you've not really put me in any corner. But put me in a corner, Trevor, I'll get out.
Come out fighting.
I'll come out fighting. And I'm really so glad today. South Africans are free, liberated South Africans from having this discussion. And unfortunately, our legal system is actually not only failing South Africans, it's actually failing for foreigners who would come to South Africa because obviously our borders are the most porous in the world. People are under the impression that South Africa is a country of honey and everything. In the meantime, South Africa becomes hell for them, more especially women when they come here. Men then get involved in crime syndicates with the drugs and so forth. And people are expecting us to keep quiet.
What about, Herman, I hear you on undocumented foreigners. What about when it comes to, you then have a hashtag that says South Africa, put South Africa first. You then have violence being meted against foreigners, even those who are documented and so forth. You have the examples of 2 Mozambicans that are bent alive because they are foreigners. Don't you think that you carry some of the blame for inflaming the sentiments of South Africans against the foreigners?
I think, Trevor, please ask any of your journalists. As the journalist in this country, if you look at how many times people in the black communities take the law into their own hands, against one another because of the failure of the entire criminal justice system. When people really know that there are criminal elements within their communities, so vigilantism becomes the order of the day, which is really something that we've got to avoid. That is why from day one, that is why when the ANC reported me to the Human Rights Commission about promoting xenophobia, I was cleared by the Human Rights Commission because, Trevor, what I was advocating, and I'm still advocating today, the problem of South Africa with undocumented foreigners is not the foreign nationals. It's the South African government failure to execute and implement our laws, because South Africa has got an obligation through our constitution to ensure that people of the world, they must come here. South Africa was built at the back of migrants coming here. And some people run away from despots. They come to South Africa. South Africa has got an obligation to immediately make sure that these people are assessed and given the documentation if they qualify. And if they don't qualify, they must be sent back to their country. This can't be xenophobic. So we, as a sovereign state, and I'm the first South African to defend the South Africans and foreign nationals, because at the end of the day, law-abiding South Africans and law-abiding foreign nationals are the actual victims of this. If we had allowed the ANC government to keep us quiet on this matter, the situation will be much worse. It was not going to really improve. At least today we can discuss it openly. South Africans are waking up to this reality. Some of us, me in particular, go all out with South Africans from day one. That's why when I was reported to the South African Human Rights Commission, literally celebrated
by the ANC.
Yeah, I was reported by the ANC.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, well, because they're the biggest beneficiaries of this chaos. I mean, ANC survival is dependent on lawlessness and the chaos. So they thought that I would be found wanting. In the meantime, they forgot that there's a constitutional framework in South Africa. What I was advocating, and I'm advocating today, it is Home Affairs. It is the ANC government that is failing South Africans. It's failing foreign nationals. South Africa needs to encourage people of the world to come to South Africa. And when they must come here legally, and when they are here, to respect our laws. If you are running away from despots, like to give you an example, Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF, you know, I mean, if I look at Zimbabwe, I mean, it was one country in the 80s I used to admire. I once actually at one stage in the 80s, just before our independence, wanted to move my family to Zimbabwe because it was a beacon of hope for all of us. I never thought South Africa will attain free and fair, peaceful elections, but the Mandela magic worked, and also for some reason God had another plan for me. 17th of November 1993, on the eve of the election, someone touched my factory in Mabopane. I had a 6,000 state-of-the-art factory. Someone touched it. And that obviously made me to now focus on rebuilding my business here. And then a few months later, successful elections were held. I voted for Nelson Mandela. And then I look at Zimbabwe today, and to be honest with you, the role that I see ANC under Thabo Mbeki played in the destruction of Zimbabwe, it hurts me, it pains me, because the Zimbabwean collapse could have been avoided if Thabo Mbeki stood firm against Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF to say, this is totally unacceptable. The human rights abuses are some of the worst in the world.
Why do you think President Thabo Mbeki went along with President Robert Mugabe? Have you ever thought about it?
I think it's got to do with this liberation movement mentality and sympathy, comradeship. That's why I refuse to be called comrades. And in our political party, the name comrade is banned. You know, it's a bad title to use. We cannot really be comrades. The history of comrades is not a good one. I think for Thabo Mbeki to have defended ZANU-PF and Robert Mugabe to steal one election after the other, and at the same time with human rights abuses in Zimbabwe, I think for me it's unfortunate, really very unfortunate. That's why I've really and strongly believe we need to really get people of Zimbabwe to get their independence one day, and get a government that can be ethical, that can respect human rights. And the only way it can happen, personally, I'm calling on the international community to actually accelerate sanctions against the ZANU-PF government, because sanctions worked here. South Africa was not liberated by Russian AK-47s. South Africa was liberated by sanctions. And I can tell you, if we want Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe deserves it, I mean, it's Zimbabwe, our next door neighbor, with the potential that that country carries. But unfortunately, under ZANU-PF, it's like ANC here. The ZANU-PF and ANC are a curse to this continent.
Wow. Powerful comments there. Please don't go away. Our conversation with Herman Mashaba, the president of Action South Africa.
So let us learn to vote politicians in. Let us learn unapologetically to vote politicians out when they fail to meet our expectations.
Imagine getting free access to the Newsday, The Standard, The Zimbabwe Independent, and the Weekly Digest for a full month. Well, you can, And all you need to do is download the Newsday e-reader app on Google Play Store or scan the Newsday QR code in any of the AMH print publications and start enjoying the quality content. Usasaririrewe, famba ne time, famba ne chokwadi, famba ne e-paper.
Welcome back to our conversation with Herman Mashaba, the president of Action South Africa. Herman, so let's go back to, you've already shared with us, you got born and your grandfather was excited, went around telling everybody else that there's a highman here, and you went on to start Black Like Me. Talk to me about the idea of starting Black Like Me. When did that idea cross your mind? I know you got a 30,000 rand loan from your friend.
Not a friend as such. An old,
share the story with us.
Well, what happened is I need to go back so that you get the context.
Absolutely.
Went to university in 1979, second year of my studies. One morning.
What were you studying?
I was studying B-admin, majoring in political science and public administration. I was admitted to university to study law, but unfortunately I had poor marks in Afrikaans. And in 1979, in South Africa, to pursue a legal profession, you needed Afrikaans. And unfortunately, I performed badly in Afrikaans.
Maybe fortunately.
Yeah, no, fortunately, because I'm happy I'm not a lawyer. Okay. And then 1918, second year of my studies, one morning the university was surrounded by the police and the army. 6 o'clock, we said by 12 o'clock, everyone, the university must be cleared. University of the North, flew up at the time, which was they had over 350 kilometers away from home, and I had no cent left. Then when they called us back after a month or so, I decided, at the time, I was looking for context to leave the country, and while now a month or two, the university is now open, that's when I realized, let me keep myself busy, get the experience. I worked for a salary for my life for 30 months, 2 companies, Spa Pretoria as a dispatch clerk for 7 months. And then I worked for Motani Industries, furniture manufacturing for 23. Now I reached 22, no context to leave the country. And my grandfather's thoughts came to me that I needed to really be successful. I'm not going to be successful with this, what I'm doing. So I needed to stabilize my life. I felt I need to start the business, be a commission sales rep. You identify opportunities. But to be a commission sales rep, I needed to buy a car. But buying a car for me, with the type of lifestyle I was living, I realized it's dangerous. I felt I needed to stabilize my life. At the age of 22, running out of time, and I needed stability in my life. Fortunately enough, 3rd of March 1982, got married to my wife, bought a car, and became a commission sales rep. And 1983 came across a company in Johannesburg selling a brand called Supercare. Sold for them for 19 months. And during that 19 months, I was their top sales rep, earning 3,500 rands a month. I mean, it was a lot. But then I still felt vulnerable. I said, no, but I'm not in control of my life, and I needed to really be in charge. But now I had no idea or any knowledge how to manufacture these products. But I took a chance, because one thing that I've learned, my grandfather taught me, is to say, look, if you don't really try anything in life, you've already failed. So for me, that's how I operate. It's either I take a chance or I must admit failure. And I'm not going to admit failure as an option. A failure for me is not an option. I'd rather fail after having tried. So then I approached the white Afrikaner who was the production manager for this company. Johan was earning 1,006. You can imagine, for me as a black guy, earning 3,500, 4,000 and growing every month. The industry, I was going all over the country. So I approached Johan with a friend of mine, Joseph. He said, Joseph, let's talk to this white guy. If obviously doesn't like the idea, reports us to the owner of the business, well, Tough luck. But the thing is, we said, look, if we don't try,
We never know.
we never know. We approached Johan. Johan bought into the idea, but he says, you don't have money. We said, no, leave that to us. We worked out how much we want. Approached the black businessman in Mabopane. Walter Dube was a successful man at the time. We said, Mr. Dube, we found a legal machine to print money. Can you help us? And he says, how much do you want? We said 30,000 rands. Managed to get us in January of 1985, got us 200 square meter factory in Mabopane, Bophuthatswana at the time, because as black South Africans, we are not allowed to operate anywhere in South Africa. Started in a 200 square meter factory, got my wife to resign from Sutton Sons. She was a junior bookkeeper working for Saul Kesner. Got her, she had accepted to come and work for us in this 200 square meter factory. 200-liter drums used to mix by hand at night and so forth. Yeah, paid. I had, that's why, like last week, I just got back from Europe to presentation at Innsbruck in Italy. Business school have always had interest in my entrepreneurial journey because I got the most expensive funding. I paid Walter Dube Prime plus 10. Wow. And Prime in South Africa at the time was 21%. Prime plus 10 plus 25% share in the business. I had to pay him back in 3 years. I paid him back in 7 months. By 1990, when F.W. de Klerk announced the release of Mandela and banning of political parties, by then, in just over 5 years, by that time, I'd already built my own factory, spent over 10 million rands. State-of-the-art cosmetic factory. I did not owe anyone a cent.
What products were you manufacturing?
Hair care products, Pem lotions, shampoos, conditioners, hairsprays, and so forth.
So you did this during apartheid. What lessons do you have for young South Africans, young Zimbabweans sitting out there who are crying about the conditions for doing business in the environments that they are in? And you cracked it in apartheid South Africa. What lessons?
I think, if I look at the apartheid system, and I look at the new South Africa, which has now created oligarchs instead of business people. During those days, we were inspired by people like Walter Dube, the guy who gave us the Mabonyas. Those are the people we looked up to.
Genuine entrepreneurs.
Yeah, genuine entrepreneurs. I was a black industrialist before the age of 30. I had a 6,000 square meter factory employing over 200 people of Mabopane Harango used to work to my factory, supplying products throughout Southern Africa, including Zimbabwe and other places. Why? We succeeded because we did not really have the government that hated business. They left us alone. The apartheid government ignored us. They did not realize, as much as we were not allowed to run businesses, we are not allowed to operate in the so-called white areas. But at the end of the day, it left us alone. I always give people examples of running a business in Bophuthatswana. I was running, honestly, the biggest black-owned business right in the entire Bophuthatswana, if not South Africa. By the time I was state in this country, never once met Lucas Mangop, never requested a meeting with me.
It was not necessary.
Yeah, they left us alone. I look at Bophuthatswana Development Corporation. They had black and white government officials. Those guys not once ever asked us for a cold drink or anything. New South Africa came. Oh my goodness. It was like evil was just plunged over us. Then we started getting, people working for government agencies now demanding things from us instead of actually giving assistance. Put unions on us. COSATU is it's another case to this country. Rendered our people unemployed, destroyed our education system. So I think for me, what I would really say to the young Zimbabweans, the young South African, particularly blacks, because they are the ones who can determine the political trajectory of the country. vote this dictators out, vote these criminals out of power. Go out in your numbers, because obviously the evil systems, they've created a culture of saying they will do everything for you. No, you stay at home, we'll give you. So Ramaphosa will boast about people getting 350 rands a month. You know, tell me, he can survive on 4 million rands under mattress. But he expects people to survive on 350 a month. So that's a kind of a culture. If Africa can embrace democracy and understand the power of their vote, I can tell you this continent with the potential that we possess, because no country in the world really has got the potential as Africa. Unfortunately, Africa right now, we need the ethical leadership, and that's really what we need. So let us learn to vote politicians in. Let us learn unapologetically to vote politicians out when they fail to meet our expectations.
Talk to me about what are the core principles that Action for South Africa stands for? What does your party stand for? What are the key pillars?
The key pillars of things that are not negotiable for us. It's a non-racial society. I think I'm someone who respect and fear God. That I'm a proud black man, and I expect and I respect and want to coexist with others who cannot change. Because for me to be born and being created like this by God, it's not a mistake. And I don't really see the reason why I can't coexist with someone of a different race and color. So coexistence, for me, it's crucial. There's only way that we can actually build our nation. We must believe in social justice. I don't want to live side by side with poverty, abject poverty that I see in this world. That's why I'm in politics. I believe in free market economy. I'm a real example. That's why I'm called by the world for many years to really share my personal journey. Because once you can allow businesses to go out there and make legal money, they'll pay taxes, they will employ people. So I believe in government as an enabler, create a conducive environment. But government is not a place where people make money. Anywhere in the world where you find rich politicians, then you must smell problems. So government's role is to serve people. I believe in providing quality education, because without education, there's just no way this continent or any human being can ever survive. Actually, just last night, my wife and I were discussing some family problem. To say some of her family members wants to have some kind of function to pray to their gods or whatever, And she said to them, says, "No, man, guys, educate your children, man. If you want to solve your problems, educate your children." So education. And I look at Zimbabwe in the 90s, 80s. Oh my goodness, I used to be so envious. That's why I wanted to move out there. But unfortunately, the ZANU-PF have really destroyed the lives of millions of people. But they were their brothers here in ANC. That's why they work hand in glove to ensure that they can keep black people the poor. So, and ethical leadership. Please, when you go into politics, put society ahead of your own stomach. It's like running business. If I produce a shampoo, I mustn't produce a shampoo that works for me. I must put a shampoo that works for the person who's
push back, Herman, and say, "Oh, but you can say that, Herman, because your pockets are already full, because you're taken care of." But most of these people see business, politics rather, as a place to go and do primitive accumulation. That's where you go and make money.
But then, if you've got that kind of thinking, then Trevor, then you must accept that you are going to fail. You're going to be corrupt. You're going to be evil. So if you're going to put your stomach ahead of serving society and you think you can make money out of politics, I'm afraid the system, you've already failed. I mean, it's been proven over the last 2,000 years where you find corrupt politicians. A system like that can never really survive. So, but one thing for sure is that the capitalist system has proven beyond any reasonable doubt, you can't really default that, or that once you allow people to go out and make money and you've got the rule of law, The people pay taxes, and government uses that money properly to build more schools, more clinics, or hospitals, infrastructure, public transport systems, so that people can move around. And there's the rule of law.
And there's social conscience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's why social justice is actually quite key, because when you've got the business community running businesses, in your education system, there has to be an element of social justice. That's the reason why, really, for me, one of the issues that makes me angry about the ANC is by taking God out of our schools. When I started school in 1966, Sub-A, in a church, Sub-A used to be in a church, Sub-A and Sub-B, and the standard one, we had some classes. Every morning, Trevor, before we go to school, there's a 10 minutes or so of assembly, This criminals came into our country and says South Africa is a secular state where only maximum of 2% of South Africans don't believe in God. In one form or another, we Christian. I'm a proud Christian, and I coexist with my Muslim the friends and brothers, the Jewish, Hindus. We can coexist because all of us ultimately believe in God. But now, what has happened with the ANC? They've taken the consciousness out of human beings. That's why we're seeing the levels of crime unprecedented. You need to bring that consciousness that as a business person, how many cars can I drive to Trevor? How many meals can I have?
How many houses can you live in?
How many,
Let me move you to 2024 is around the corner. How serious is Action SA as a party? And what role do you think it's going to play? Do you see yourself being part of a coalition at a national level, and coalition playing part as a coalition partner at local government level? What do you see for?
Look, one thing that is a fact of life that no one will ever reverse is that South Africa has entered the era of coalition. No one is going to get outright majority for the next 50, 100 years. And I'm actually quite pleased with such outcome, because dictatorship and one-party rule, it's not good for our continent. It's not good for any society. I mean, if you look at, we lived from 1948 under the National Party government. We lived 29 years under ANC domination. So one party government is not good for mankind. So we've entered the era of coalition. And without doubt, Action SA is going to be a major player. Just to give you an example, we launched Action SA on the 29th of August 2020, right during lockdown. We had the year to contest the local government elections. I then strategically decided to only contest 6 municipalities. Out of 6 municipalities, Action SA emerged as the 6th biggest political party. Out of 278, parties that contested 278, they've been in parliament for more than 20 years. We overtook them. And at the time, largest out of 6 municipalities. Now, the whole of last year and now, I've got structures all over the country. We're launching, as I'm talking to you right now, I've got teams launching branches throughout the country. So we're ready to contest the 2024 national and provincial elections. My prediction.
Your prediction. Yeah, we're going to hold you to it.
My prediction. The worst case scenario, Action SA will be the second biggest party in the country.
Wow. DA, the ANC.
No, we'll be bigger.
You'll be bigger than the DA.
No, there's no doubt about that. We'll be bigger than.
Wow.
If ANC continues at this trajectory of dollars and mattresses, if they continue at that trajectory, we might even be bigger than that.
Herman, we're going to turn to books. You've got two books here that you've written. Our viewers out there love books, Herman. And well done for writing these books. Herman Mashaba, Black Like You. This is an autobiography of you. Thank you for this book. I'm looking forward to reading
this one wasn't written by me. It was written by my chief of staff.
Accidental Mayor,
it's
Herman Mashaba and the Battle
My
for
other
Johannesburg.
book that I wrote is called Capitalist Crusade. I wrote it about 10 years ago.
What books would you recommend to our book-loving audience out
Oh,
there?
my
And
goodness.
what books I'm putting you on the spot?
You put him on the spot. I think what I can tell you, the authors, please, more especially Africa.
Okay.
There's an economist, one of the best economists, Professor Thomas Sowell.
Okay.
Read the books from that. Or a friend of mine, Williams, and may his soul rest in peace, just died last year. Professor Williams, US economist, great guy. But mainly, I read books about people. I like autobiographies and biographies. About Trevor, I always get fascinated to really learn about this media personality. What got you into media? What got you into sport?
You are like me. Herman, wow, fantastic. Refreshing views, no sacred cows. You owe no apologies to anybody. You speak your mind. We wish Action SA the very best, and hopefully we'll sit here after 2024 and take an audit of your prediction, whether you're going to be the second biggest party in South Africa then. But in the meantime, so thank you so much, Herman. We wish you the best. I see you on the ground working very hard in overalls and stuff. So we wish you all the very best, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Allow me to turn to our viewers who are all over the world, Herman, who follow us every Monday. Remember, we're out on Mondays on YouTube, 7 a.m. Central African time. To ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations, such as one I've had with Herman, my brother here, please click on this subscribe button and subscribe. You'll get a notification when you subscribe. And we have created podcasts which sit on our website for your listening pleasure. Until next time, thank you for watching and cheers.